My name is Skinner, and this is my show, This Fear You May Know, at White Walls Gallery in San Francisco. I loved cartoons and fantasy films growing up as a little kid, the Hulk TV show and like all this stuff, the movies Beastmaster and Conan and all those like B-level fantasy films that were just terrible, but you just wanted to see something cool when you're little and just like, oh. And it's very particular to like little young dudes. Like little young dudes want some crazy ass action film, you know? But I grew up, it was like a super intense environment with my family, but I just I just got into it. I was just really into it, drawing monsters, dinosaurs, creatures, like just like a hill and a mountain with some monsters in the ground and like a tank and some ninjas or something, you know, like that whole thing. And then it sort of kind of evolved into full, huge scenes. You know, computer paper back in the day used to be connected. So I would just unroll like 6 or 7 of those pieces of paper and just draw this like one long, huge battle scene of like dinosaurs in the ground, in the water, in the sky. And, you know, they were nuts. I wonder if my mom still has some of those, but her office, she was the office manager at a gynecologist place. So like they'd have to like put me in this back room, you know, where after school I'd go there and they'd have to put me in a back room. And there was all these like women and, you know, getting checked out and doing all this stuff, you know. And so they'd put me in this room and then give me like just stacks of computer paper. And I would just plaster these huge long battle scenes on the walls of these offices, you know, and they were always like taking them down and stuff. And they're like, the ladies they don't like that, you know, the ladies are trying to, it's a very sensitive area here, you know, so, but it was cool, man, it was really, really cool, and I continued just drawing and getting into painting. It was just all Batman, and then like Batman fighting a dinosaur, and I was like, why didn't they ever just do a comic called Batman versus the dinosaurs or something? I grew up in a very small town, a very rural town, that didn't have like comic book stores or gaming shops or anything cool. So I would go to antique stores and they would have really old comic books there and really old stuff that was like 20 years before my time, or that came out while I was a baby. So all my reference and comics and influences and stuff were from 20 years or 10 years before. And it's like a lot of that psychedelic heavy metal art, traditional folk art, strange mythological art from around the world, things from the past. I'm not really influenced by any modern kinds of movements or anything. I love a lot of modern artists, but the things that really instigate the creative process within me that I love, that reminds me of how I was being a kid, like drawing and stuff, are artists from like Heavy Metal Magazine, Richard Corbin, anybody who was in heavy metal, Eerie magazine, you know. And so for the show actually is sort of an homage to the artists from the past who were just doing the most bizarre stuff that I don't even think a lot of people realize, that they're like second or third generation, you know, fantasy artists that even know where it comes from. Jack Kirby, who did all the comics, and basically just these architects of, you know, modern fantasy and stuff. This show is different than anything that I've done because it's very intensive, committed, cohesive, like nightmarish, sort of apocalyptic, psychedelic paintings that I just invested myself into for 6 months. Kind of not thinking and letting whatever is going to happen sort of happen organically. And it was really difficult because the first half of a painting is laying down the composition and the colors, and then getting it to the point where I could go back over it with the line work and the ink and stuff. And that's probably committing myself to that level of meditation and focus on it is like a little bit different. The artwork itself is like, to me, is like almost funny, you know? And I tried to make it so beautiful that it's hard not to look at the dark weirdness of it. And it's like, you look at it, you're like, God, it's so bright and beautiful, and you're like looking at it, it's like really cool, and then all of a sudden you realize you're looking at this somewhat horrific thing. And that I think it's good for people to have like an internal struggle. That's what I'm encouraging, like an internal struggle, like this thing is, to reevaluate it, you know. It's not like just like there's some guts on the wall or whatever, and people are like, oh, that's so gross, you know. It's just like, wow, this thing is so beautiful and so strange, and I'm afraid of it, but like it's still beautiful or something, you know. And then like you can kind of take that hesitation to judge with you, and then just sort of like reserve your judgment until you're done completely analyzing something, you know.